Hi, this is Jen Rubin, editor-in-chief of The Contrarian. Where in the world is Tim Mak? He's in Paris, but not at the Louvre, unfortunately, not strolling down the Champs-Élysées. Tim, where are you and welcome?
I'm at the Paris Air Show, which is a big kind of international gathering of, military technology companies and aviation companies, all showing off their latest wares and talking about what the future of aviation and, for me at least, the interest is in, what's the future of defense technology in Europe?
Yes. Are the Europeans making an effort to really push forward, show they can dominate or at least participate in the market, even if the United States pulls back? Is there really a big marketing push going on?
Yeah, I think what we're seeing is that, years ago there was this big push for NATO members to spend 2% of their GDP on defense. It was like pulling teeth. Now everyone's talking 3-4%. Okay, because this is all kind of is the result of the breakdown in the transatlantic partnership and the ability for Europe to rely on the United States as a stable and enduring partner. And so what that means is that Europe is spending hundreds of billions of dollars, um, close to $1 trillion, in order to rearm itself because it realized it cannot rely on the United States as a partner in the long term if Russia might be involved, if there might be, I mean, Russia is already involved in all sorts of what are called hybrid actions against European countries. That's things like jamming GPS signals um, and cutting undersea internet cables. There's even this effort by the Kremlin and Belarus to send um, refugees across their borders into Europe as a sort of scheme. Uh, it is just and that's not even to include all the information warfare stuff that they do. But
Uh,
Europe has kind of understood now that it cannot rely so heavily on the United States and needs to build all sorts of things, and that the kind of post-war, post-Cold War peace dividend is ending.
Yeah. It's very interesting, first of all, that they are spending so much. And second of all, that the big losers in all of this may well be the American defense industries, who now have real competitors in the market. And thanks very much, Donald Trump. All that made in America, well, there's going to be a lot of stuff made in different places. Let me move to Ukraine, which has been relatively quiet because this president, Donald Trump, can only really focus on one thing at a time. So he's focused on the Middle East. But what is the state of the war and what are the state of any negotiations on Ukraine?
I don't think we're any further on negotiations with Ukraine and Russia. And in fact, we might have receded away from it. What it looks like, I mean, Donald Trump was the person who demanded negotiations now to begin with. And as soon as that occurred, decided, oh, well, it's maybe a little too complicated, or I don't want to put sufficient pressure on Russia to make them actually make concessions, which is necessary in any negotiation. And that's the real problem right now is that the negotiations, if left to their own devices, the Ukrainians and Russians don't have a lot of common ground, or certainly not enough to make a deal right now.
Right.
Only a third party could push them together, and the United States is not really playing that role.
Yeah.
Just recently, Reuters reported that the United States under the Trump administration had disbanded a working interagency working group that was made to come up with ideas to pressure Russia to come to the negotiating table, to pressure Russia to end the war and negotiate with Ukraine. Disbanded it. Um, Look, so not only are we not closer, I think we're further away today from
Right.
a negotiated peace.
Where is the state of the warfare now on the battlefield? Has Ukraine stopped the attrition, stopped the loss of territory? Is this really a status quo at this point? Where do things rest?
No, Russia has the momentum right now and has gained a bunch of territory in northern Ukraine in what's known as the Sumy region. And it's not these advances are not like the advances of the first few days of the invasion, but it is something in which, um, we have real concerns about. The number of attacks on Ukrainian cities have dramatically increased. We have had hundreds and hundreds of drone attacks and missile attacks, and it is really it's hard for me to describe what it's like to never fully be safe. But just imagine that you go to bed always at high alert, and you're waking up at every sound and every movement. That you're seeing all these images of destroyed buildings around you. You're hearing anti-aircraft fire and the explosions of kamikaze drones. And if you open your window at night, often you can hear the buzzing of these drones flying in the dark. I mean, this is just something that has a cumulative pressure and toll on people,
Yes,
and
long time trouble.
would be a real challenge.
Yeah. It's interesting that although there was great excitement and I'm sure a burst of morale for the Ukrainians after their really brilliant drone strike and a success in knocking down Russian aircraft, it didn't really change the fundamentals of the war, did it?
No, it raised Ukrainian morale and it said, "Hey, we still got some cards to play." But fundamentally, the war will end only when Russia is forced to end it,
Yeah.
and creating pressure on it, on Russia, Russian economic pressures, forcing it to back off from the battlefield. Those are the sorts of things that would change the calculation, or a third party like the United States coming in and saying, "We're going to renew additional sanctions. We're going to create more pressures um, to to um, to pave the way for conditions for peace." That's just not happening right now. It may, I hope it does in the future, but it's not happening right now.
It's very interesting. When it comes to Iran, this president seems to understand that military pressure helps force a party to the negotiating table. He can't wrap his mind around the fact that the same might apply to Ukraine and Russia. How do the events, do you think, in the Middle East, if at all, play into the dynamic in Russia? Russia, of course, is a big sponsor of Iran. They might be very disappointed if Donald Trump helped Israel out. What's that dynamic look like?
Well, the people who are most subject to Iran's malign foreign military expeditions are the Ukrainians. When I mentioned to you, when you open a window at night and you listen, you can hear the buzzing of kamikaze drones. Those are Shaheeds. Those are Iranian-made drones that are flying around and killing Ukrainians. So the Ukrainians are very much aware of the brutality of the Iranian military and foreign policy. And I think that as even as we speak now, I mean the situation in with regards to Iran is very, very quickly evolving, and I feel like if I make one prediction right now, I'm going to have to withdraw it within 5 minutes. But
Yes.
the bottom line for Ukraine is that if Iran is increasingly marginalized as a military power, it's going to weaken Russia and it's going to strengthen Ukraine's hand in proportion. And so it's funny. I mean, Iran still has an embassy in Kyiv, and I walk by it once in a while, and I still see that there's some presence there. But Iran getting beat up by Israeli strikes, I don't think there are many Ukrainians that are shedding any tears.
Are you surprised that Putin has not weighed in more strongly to try to dissuade his junior partner, Donald Trump, from entering that war? Does he just not have enough political capital? Is he just doesn't want to use up a chip with Donald Trump? Why hasn't Putin played a bigger role on behalf of Iran?
Putin has wanted to play a bigger role when it comes to Iran, and the public reporting suggests that he reached out to Donald Trump and suggested that he play some sort of mediating role in ending the war. And Donald Trump said, "You got to worry about mediating your ongoing war first." Um, and so I think he would very much like to. I think he sees his relationship with Trump as one that guarantees Russia a much more prestigious and central role in world affairs. Um, but right now, it looks like Donald Trump is taking counsel from other folks.
Right. Well, it is very interesting. Once again, Ukraine is doing something on behalf of American national security, on behalf of Israeli national security, by keeping Russia occupied, frankly, and by diverting them. Russia is not a player in the Middle East, in large part because of the military actions we've seen over the last few years. So, if for no other reason, even if they're not concerned about humanity, they're not concerned about democracy, the role that Ukraine is increasingly playing in helping to tie Russia up in knots and really diminish their military and their diplomatic presence in the rest of the world is pretty remarkable. So thank you, Tim. We'll look forward to tracking you down the next time. Enjoy the air show. We expect to see lots of video and pictures, and we will look forward to seeing you next time.
Thanks, Jen.